صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وبه نستعين إنه خير ناصر ومعين. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيدنا ومولانا وطبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين، لا سيما إمامنا وحجتنا القائم آل محمد صلوات. واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون ومن يتولى الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا فإن حزب الله هم الغالبون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. Respected Maulana, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On this 4th night of our discussion, so far we have been discussing the topic of wilaya, gave a definition of what wilaya means, which is an intimate connection, and gave a few characteristics of wilaya. And last night we talked about the first being, the first type of wilaya, the first connection that Allah commands us to. In this ayah of Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah begins with Himself. He says, إِنَّمَا وَلِيُّكُمْ, indeed and surely your wali is Allah. And then He continues, وَرَسُولُهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Inshallah, in the next few nights, we will talk about the Rasul, these various other forms of wilayah that we are called to have, these connections that we're called to have. But tonight, we will continue this discussion about our connection with Allah. And said that the first and most essential connection that we have to Allah is not something that we have decided. It's not something that we even had the ability to make the decision. It's that God has created us and then He has sustained us. So in fact, this connection, this intimate connection that we have with Allah starts with Allah Himself. It starts from Him and not us. And in fact, when we look at our being, when we look at ourselves and we see how much in need we are of Allah, then this becomes ever more present for us. We have this in our, this is something that I think we all have a sense for. And in particular, one I think beautiful illustration of how much we are in need of Allah is in a line that is from, in Persian literature, that's what I'm most familiar with. Unfortunately for many of you, maybe it's not as familiar, but there is this very famous poet and named Sa'di, maybe some of you are familiar. And what he begins, one of his texts of poetry, he begins with a very beautiful description of our relationship with Allah. This need that we have, this utter need that we have. He says, هر نفسی که فرو می رود ممد حیات است و چو بر می آید مفرح ذات پس در هر نفسی دو نعمتی موجود است و چو بر می آید دو نعمت موجود است و بر هر نعمتی شکری واجب. So in just a summary, what he is saying is every single breath that we take, every single breath that comes into our lungs, we have to give thanks. And then every single breath that comes out of our body, that is also something that gives us life. So it goes in, it gives us life, and then once it comes out, that gives us relief. If the breath goes in and it doesn't come out, that will cause us to maybe suffocate or have internal problems. If it doesn't come out, then that would also cause problems. So what the poet says here is, for every breath that we take, there is one air going in and one air coming out. And so for every breath we have to give, there are two blessings that Allah has given us. And for every blessing that Allah gives us, we have to give thanks to Allah. So imagine, for every breath, there are two blessings, and for every blessing we have to give thanks. Is it even possible for us to thank Allah for all of the different blessings that He has given us? This is just a small glimpse of what the blessings of Allah that He gives us and that are so central to our very being. We would not be alive if we did not have this breath. And we would not be alive if God did not give us these two blessings. Now, this is just a small glimpse. Imam Hussein takes this much, much further. In his dua Arafah, it's a very famous dua that Imam Hussein is reported to have recited, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Imam Hussein is reported on the day of Arafah to have, once the time for going and praying had come, it is reported that he exited from the tents along with a number of his companions and his closest Ahlul Bayt, and he goes to the left side of the mountain and he raises his hands in prayer to Allah. And the way that the hadith is reported, the way that the dua is reported is that Imam Hussein raises his hands as a beggar would in front of someone who is wealthy and rich. And Imam Hussein asks Allah, and he talks to Allah, and he begins his prayer. In that first part of the prayer, Imam Hussein is reciting all of the blessings that Allah gives us. And the first part of that prayer, he talks about how deeply we are in debt to Allah. He says, "Ibtada'tani qabla an akuna shay'an madhkura." Oh Allah, you began your connection to me, you began the blessings that you are pouring upon me even before I was a thing that could be mentioned. Even before I was something that was existing and was something that people would think about, you began your blessings upon me. So it's not even anymore that I have a body for the body to need that breath. It's not even that I am even a body for it to have a spirit. I was nothing and you brought me into existence. I was nothing and you were thinking about me, and you were thinking about the blessings that you will give me. And then the Imam talks about all of the various blessings after that. He says, for example, that I was in this dark and lonely place. I had no one, not even to think about me. No one even knew about me for them to care for me. And then you placed me in the womb and you started to develop me, and you gave me bones and you covered those bones in flesh and in skin, and you raised me in the womb when no one was there, when no one else could have helped me. And you gave me food, and then when I exited the womb, you continued to give me life and support. And then the Imam talks about the blessings that he puts, Allah places in our body, throughout our body. And it's a very beautiful dua. We can't talk about it to give it in its full beauty, in its full extent, but it requires some thought and requires some study in and of itself. And so we see the extent to which we are in debt, an extent to which we need Allah and that intimate connection that Allah begins Himself. Now, Allah doesn't just stop there. He doesn't just say, I created you and I sustained you. Those are some of the primary forms that we are connected to Allah. But in fact, the way Allah describes His connection to us is not in terms primarily of His creating us and His sustaining us. When we look in the Quran, when we begin to recite the Quran, how do we recite it? We say, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We start with the name of Allah. We are beginning with the name of Allah. And then we say, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. What are the two main characteristics that Allah is telling us about here? Allah's mercy, His love, and His compassion. Those are the first ways that Allah deals with us. What do we read in Surah Al-Fatiha? Say, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. He created the worlds and He is the Lord of the worlds. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. He is the one who is most merciful and most compassionate. And then He talks about His justice. Maliki Yawmiddin. Because the day of judgment is the day when Allah presents His full justice to all of creation. Whoever has done good will get their reward. Whoever has done evil will get their punishment. But before Allah talks about that, He says, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Let's just take a few minutes to talk about what does it mean? Why do we have these two words? Ar-Rahman and then Ar-Rahim. According to the words of the Ahlul Bayt, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The way that they describe these two words, it's almost, when we explain it or translate it in English, it almost becomes, synonyms, and we don't know quite how to explain it, right? What does it mean? You say Allah is the most compassionate and the most merciful. Well, what's the difference between being compassionate and merciful? It almost seems like they're the same thing. Or Allah is the most beneficent, the most compassionate. The way that the Ahlul Bayt and some of the other mufassirun of the Quran, they explain it is in terms of Ar-Rahman being a mercy and a love that Allah has for all of His creation. Not just for those who love Him back. Not just for those who even recognize that there is Allah. Even for people who reject Allah, He is Ar-Rahman. Even for those who disobey Allah. So for the kuffar, the mushrikeen, even those people, Allah has first of all brought into existence. He has given them sustenance, and He continues to give them sustenance. So even those people are blessed and loved in a way by Allah. And then talk about Ar-Rahim. We say Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahim is a particular type of blessing, particular type of love that Allah has for those people who are closest to Him, for those true believers in Allah. So we see that one of the main ways that Allah connects Himself to us is in terms of His love. Not just in terms of His creating us and sustaining us, but also in terms of His love. Last night, presented this question that maybe sometimes we are faced with in our society. What is the point, what is the purpose of religion? And a lot of times we might have this question presented to us as believers, and in particular as Muslims. And we said that there are multiple purposes and multiple blessings that God gives us through His religion that He has given us. One of those main forms of blessing and one of the main purposes of religion is to show us the reality behind existence, the purpose behind existence. And what Allah does is He shows us the purpose behind existence through His love and His compassion. So we said that if we are to look at our material world, if, for example, the scientific community was to come to a consensus that, say, for example, that climate change is real and it's taking place, and this terrible hurricane that's coming our way, inshallah, we won't have to deal with it too much, but this is one of those maybe signs or one of the effects that you are going to have increasingly extreme weather patterns, right? So this is some of the things that there's a consensus about, the scientific community has agreed upon. And if somebody were to disagree with that, we would say what? That either that person has some either political motive or some ulterior motive for disagreeing with that. Or, for example, they're ignorant. They don't know what science is all about. But that is a fact. That's a reality. It's a reality of our world. Now, that is with regard to the material world specifically. Science doesn't tell us anything about anything beyond the material world. Anything beyond that which we can experience, what we can see and what we can maybe hear and what we can experiment on. But what Allah time and time again tells us in the Quran is that this is not the only level of reality. What we are guiding you to and what we are trying to get you to see is a level of reality that goes beyond this. We are trying to get you to see why God created this world, why God created all of the things that you can see. So in Surah Al-Fussilat, Allah says, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقِّ. We will show them the creation and the signs of Allah, our signs, in the heavens and in themselves. Why? So that the fact that Allah is the truth becomes present for them. Allah is the truth becomes obvious for them. Just as much as you can see this external world and you can hear, for example, what goes on in the world, just as much as that, you should be able to see the reality and the purpose behind this world. Now this might seem a little bit kind of strange for us or a little bit distant for us, but let me give you an example. If, say, for example, there was a terrible tragedy, say, for example, a school shooting or any other type of terrible tragedy that happens in our society, and someone who is trying to describe for us what happened, they say, for example, that this number of people were killed, and then this is the gun that was used, or this is the thing that was used to kill all of these people, and this is, the way the weather was like on that day, and this is all of the, for example, they entered through this place, and so on and so forth. And they explained for us in detail the material stuff that was happening at that time. And then they say, well, the decision about whether this was a good thing or a bad thing is entirely up to you. You guys decide. Was this a good thing that we had this tragedy and we had this, for example, if it was a shooting of some kind, was it a good thing that we had it or a bad thing? You guys decide. If somebody were to say this to us, we would say, well, that's a terrible way of describing what happened. this is a tragedy. And the reason we call it a tragedy is because this was evil. And somebody who does this either is insane and doesn't have their reasoning ability, or they have some sort of disease in their hearts, and that's what caused them to commit this evil and terrible act. Right? If we were to take away the moral reality of that event, then any sort of description that that person gives us about what happened would be completely irrelevant. We would say you've missed the whole picture. The whole picture is that this was a terrible thing. And so we see that the moral reality, the moral facts, are much more important than the description, the material description that a person can give us. The moral reality of this world is much more important to us as human beings than just the facts about how our world works. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And so that's why Allah tells us that He will show us the signs in the heavens and the earth, not just so we can understand signs, not just so we can understand the material reality behind the world, but so that we can be pointed to something even deeper. And the fact that Allah gives us this understanding, the fact that Allah gives us these signs first of all, and then the understanding that there is a purpose to creation, that in and of itself is a sign of Allah's mercy. Because in the end of the day, why did Allah, first of all, we already asked it, why did Allah have to create us? Well, it's out of His own mercy. Why did Allah have to sustain us? It's out of His own mercy. But then the final question is, why does Allah have to give us the understanding that there is a moral and a spiritual reality behind this world? Allah didn't owe anything to us. We didn't have anything that Allah needed. Allah gave us not just our creation, but this understanding. And that is actually probably one of the greatest blessings that Allah gives us. That we have this understanding, and it's something that goes to the depths of our heart. And Allah explains this to us. He says in Surah Al-Rum, He says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فطرة الله التي فطر الناس عليها لا تبديل لخلق الله. That Allah has created within human beings a fitra, an innate understanding of how the world works, an innate understanding of how the moral and spiritual world works. Because if we were to ask ourselves, well, so we know that this tragedy was something that is evil. We know that, for example, if we see someone give charity, or if we were to see someone do good to another person, we know that that's good. And when we see it, we will be able to understand that it's good. Now, one thing that a lot of religious people will not be able to answer is, why do you see that? Who gave you that understanding? Did you learn it in school? That, for example, if I see someone being kind to another person, that's a good thing? Or if, say, for example, someone does this terrible tragedy, did you learn it in school necessarily, that you are saying that this is a bad thing? Or do you see it somewhere, maybe there's a sign out there in the world that says, tragedies are bad. Or say, for example, if you hurt someone else, that's a bad thing. We don't. It's something that comes from within us. Something that is deep within us. And whenever we see it, and we don't actually see it in the world out there. A scientist, for example, can't come and experiment, well, this is, for example, 5 degrees of goodness, this is 5 degrees of injustice. Right? A scientist can't come and measure how much good someone does or how much evil someone does. But we know that deep within our heart. Of course, that doesn't mean that always we're right. So sometimes we might think something is good, but actually it's bad. Or we might think something is bad, but it's actually good. But that doesn't negate the fact, that doesn't go against the fact that we see it, when we understand it, when we come across something that's either good or evil. And so, Abu Abdullah, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he explains this aspect of it also, this aspect of our being, of our reality, as well in Dua Arafah. He says, لم يمنعك جهلي وجرأتي لم يمنعك جهلي وجرأتي عليك أن دللتني إلى ما يقربني إليك ووفقتني لما يزلفني إليك. O Allah, my ignorance and the fact that I am so bold in front of all of these blessings, I see the blessings that you give me and yet I defy you. And I didn't know at some point who you were, and yet you guided me towards yourself. I didn't know any of this, and yet you guided me. And all of my ignorance and all of my boldness and crassness in front of you, none of that prevented you from guiding me. And none of that prevented you from bringing me closer to yourself. And just to kind of make sense of what Imam Hussein is saying here, if, for example, we were to give our sons or daughters, if we were to give our children everything that they ever wanted, everything that they ever asked us to, and then in response, our children were to come and, for example, they didn't even thank us. That's not even the issue. They maybe, ruined our house, or they left for example, they left the dishes in the sink, which maybe they do already. But when they had the ability to, and when they had the means to, they didn't properly thank us. And when we were older, they didn't come and take care of us. And they, God forbid, for example, they disrespect us in front of other people. They don't listen to us at any point in their lives. They are not thankful or grateful at all. If we were to see this in our children, what would we do? After maybe the first time, we'd say, okay, he's maybe a child, or say, for example, they grow up. After the first time, you say, well, maybe they're, it's okay, the first time it happens. The second time, the third time, the fourth time. After a certain point, we say, this child is not grateful. Why should I even care? Why should I go towards him? Why should I give him even more than I have already given him? I have raised him, I've given him life, and yet he is still ungrateful. Why should I go towards him? What Imam Hussein here is saying is that we do this with Allah time and time again. And Allah does not owe us anything whatsoever. And yet Allah turns towards us and He continues to pull us towards Him. And it is actually in certain times in our lives which are the most difficult. The most difficult times of our lives, we might not realize it. But those are the moments that Allah is pointing us and pulling us towards Him even more. This fitrah that we have, this innate understanding that we have a creator, and we didn't just pop into existence or come into existence of our own accord, of our own doing. We realize this, and whoever you ask, they will always understand. Even if they don't have an answer to it, they will always ask this question, well, where did I come from? Where am I going? Everybody asks this question, and actually if you see even some of the most irreligious people, when death comes knocking at the door, even some of the most people who don't care about religion at all or don't have any sort of spiritual life whatsoever, it is at those moments, those critical moments, that they sort of turn towards something deeper. They might not know where to go, they might not know how to answer their question, but they will understand that there's something deeper beyond what I can see. And there's something deeper beyond the life that I am living now. And so Allah in His Quran says, it's at these moments that I am calling you towards myself, and it's at these moments that fitrah, that innate understanding that you have, that connection that you have towards me, the most intimate connection that you have towards me, that's when it starts to shine. That's when that connection becomes the strongest. And so Allah in Surah An-Najm, He says, وَأَنَّهُ أَضْحَكَ وَأَبْكَى وَأَنَّهُ أَمَاتَ وَأَحْيَا. He is the one who makes us laugh and He makes us cry. Those extreme moments in our lives. He is the one who gives us death, He kills us, and He brings us to life. It's at those moments that we really realize that we come to this full understanding of who Allah is and how much we are in need of Allah. Normally in our lives we are distracted by the world. We don't really understand those deeper questions that we might have. But once it comes to my, God forbid if this happens to any one of us, but to my close relative, if I have a close relative and they are on their deathbed, or if I have, for example, the birth of my child. It's at those moments when I'm so happy, or when I am so sad that I'm beside myself, beside my own life. It's at those moments when I realize that there is more to my life than maybe I had thought. And so, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, it is at these moments as well that when we call to Allah, even though we've been completely neglectful of our responsibility to Allah, that Allah shows His compassion to us. And He shows His mercy and His kindness to us. Allah begins His connection, that's wilaya with us, and then He continues it, and then He even shows us the way back to Him. And He guides us towards Him. He takes our hand, and step by step we go towards Him. And even when we get off the track, Allah brings us back on the right path. And when we call Him, when those dire moments of our lives, Imam Hussein says, فَإِن دَعَوْتُكَ أَجَبْتَنِي وَإِن سَأَلْتَكَ أَعْطَيْتَنِي وَإِنْ أَطَعْتَكَ شَكَرْتَنِي وَإِنْ شَكَرْتُكَ زِدْتَنِي. When I called upon you, when I prayed towards you, O Allah, you responded me. Those moments when we have no one else in the world, when everybody else has turned their backs on us, or even when nobody even knows who we are. It's at those moments that when we knock on Allah's door, He responds to us. And beyond this, when we ask Him for something, He gives it to us. And Imam Hussein says, and when we worship Him, what's interesting is when we worship Him, we do our responsibility towards Allah, He thanks us. He thanks us. And when we thank Him, He gives us even more blessings, and He extends His blessings towards us. This is a type of mercy that maybe we don't even realize how much Allah gives us blessing time after time. One after another. We thank Him, and then He gives us more. We worship Him and we do our responsibility, and yet He thanks us. And so we see that not only is Allah most merciful to us, but He shows His mercy by guiding us back towards Him. He shows His mercy by pointing us back to that whole purpose of our creation. And in fact, when we say that religion gives us this purpose, what we are trying to say and what we are saying in fact is that religion gives us a map for what reality actually is like. So you guys who look at science and look at the way, for example, medicine works in this world, and we think that we know, for example, we have knowledge about how our material world works. If you turn a blind eye towards what religion tells you and what Islam specifically tells us, what Islam tells us about who we are and those deepest parts of the reality of our very being, then you are just like, for example, if a person was to deny this consensus of the scientific community, and we would call them either ignorant, or we'd call them, maybe for example, they had ulterior motives, or they are maybe, God forbid, they're crazy and they're beyond their mind, we would also have the same reaction to somebody who denies religion. Because religion, and Islam specifically, is telling us about our connection with the deepest parts of our soul. It's telling us about the map of how our soul works. سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. About how the world works and the purpose behind creation, and as well about their soul. About that inner world that we have. And the purpose for which we created it. And where we are supposed to go. And why we were brought into this world. And so that's what religion gives us. That's one of the many things that religion gives us. And we see that this is exemplified best, this contrast between what religion can give us and what, if we move away from religion and if we move away from Islam and that guidance that Allah gives us, what it can take away from us, what our actions with relation to Allah's wilayah, with relation to this connection that we have with Allah, what the consequences are. If you talk about, for example, the consequences of climate change, they are disastrous for our material world. What about the consequences for our inner reality? What about our consequences for our soul? And we see this present in Karbala, where those who accepted the call of Imam Hussein, what they received in return, and those who rejected Imam Hussein. So if we look at two specific people in the tragedy of Karbala, let us turn our attention towards the tragedy of Imam Hussein with a loud salawat. When we look at the actions and the life of Umar ibn Sa'd, we see that he is the son of a companion of the Prophet. And he is as well a relative of Imam Hussein, a distant relative of Imam Hussein who is actually from Quraysh. So don't think he is someone who is maybe unknown in Islamic history. He is actually, his father and himself, they played a very central role, and they knew who Imam Hussein and the Ahlul Bayt were. They knew them from very close. And what happens with Umar ibn Sa'd, we see his journey throughout Karbala until he arrives in Karbala. We see that Umar ibn Sa'd initially is trying to figure out, well, what side should I fall on? He hears about Imam Hussein and his rising up, and yet Umar ibn Sa'd was a type of person who, it is reported that he would call to, for example, the killing of some of the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen before Imam Hussein and the tragedy of Karbala. He was a type of person who knew who the Ahlul Bayt were, and yet he, over time, comes to reject them. And he is first debating, should I be with Imam Hussein or should I go against him? And at one point in his journey, Yazid comes and he comes and bribes him. He says, it's your decision. It's up to you. You can either have this great governorship in Ray, which is something that he was very close to him, and it was a place which was wealthy and full of, all the blessings that Allah can give us, right? And so he is taunted by Yazid. He says, should I go towards what is right and what is true and what I know and my family, or should I take this position? And time again, he has this question asked to him. And then he decides. He says, well, actually, it seems that this position is probably better for me. And so he makes the initial step. He takes that initial step. And then Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he asks him the question again. He comes to Kufa, Umar ibn Sa'd comes to Kufa, and Ubaydullah, he sees that Umar ibn Sa'd, he's tarrying, he's kind of delaying what he has to do. He knows that he has to go and fight Imam Hussein, and yet he delays. And Ubaydullah says, either you are going to go and fight and kill Imam Hussein, or I'm going to take away this governorship. You have this decision. If you don't fight, then I'm going to take away this position that you have been promised. And then he says, no, I've made my decision, I'm going to fight. And then when he comes to Karbala, and he surrounds the camp of Imam Hussein, and it is said that he arrives on, one report says that he arrives on the 6th day of Muharram. And he surrounds the camp of Imam Hussein. He comes with, it is said, 40,000 riders, and many more soldiers come behind him. And he cuts off the water to the camp. And the real struggle of Imam Hussein and the camp starts. And yet Imam Hussein does not stop his compassion towards Umar ibn Sa'd. He calls him time and time again. And in fact, Imam Hussein has secret negotiations with Umar ibn Sa'd. He says, we are family. You know who I am. What have they promised you? Have they promised you a house? Have they promised you land? Have they promised you all of these blessings? I can give you all of these. Imam Hussein is being kind and compassionate. He says, I can give you whatever they have asked you. Just turn around. You don't need to fight me. They are asking you about this world. I am asking you about the other world. And yet, even if you don't want the other world, I'll give you this world. I will compensate you. And Umar ibn Sa'd, time and time again, refuses. At one point, Imam Hussein says, have they promised you this? You know who I am, and yet you are still going to fight me. And he has nothing to say, and so he drops his head. Umar ibn Sa'd looks down, and he has nothing left to say. And then Imam Hussein says, the curse and the la'na of Allah be upon you. You are never going to reach. May Allah take away any sort of grain or any sort of blessing that Ray will give you. And in fact, we see that he never reaches that governorship. They take that governorship away from Umar ibn Sa'd. What they had promised, what Yazid and Ubaydullah had promised, he never actually reaches what he wanted. So this is one side of the story. The other side of the story we see in Hur. This person who was from Kufa, one of the strongest battle-tested people, generals of the Kufan army. He knew as well who Imam Hussein was. And in fact, it is said that he was one of those Kufans who were close to the Ahlul Bayt. They had a deep love for the Ahlul Bayt. Even though they weren't the Shia and the outward companions of the Ahlul Bayt, and yet they had this deep love for them. And so we see that Hur is the first one to stop Imam Hussein in Karbala. It is said that Hur would follow Imam Hussein. He comes to him and he says, this is the command that I have been given. He stops him and then he directs him. He says, Imam Hussein says, I want to go that way. He says, no, this is the way we have to go. And then Imam Hussein says, well, let me go away from this place and I will go to a far-off land. Hur says, I'm sorry, this is the command that I've been given. And he directs him towards Kufa slowly and slowly until Imam Hussein reaches this land of Karbala. And they set up the tents, and then we see that later on, Umar ibn Sa'd comes as well with a larger army. And so Hur is the one who stopped Imam Hussein in Karbala. And when the time comes, on the 9th of Muharram, Hur looks to Umar ibn Sa'd. He says, "Are you really going to fight him? It seems that the army is getting ready to fight. They are preparing the battle. Are you really going to fight Imam Hussein?" Hur is still trying to figure out which side he is going to fall on. And Umar ibn Sa'd says, "Yes, what did you think this whole journey was all about? We are going to make their heads fly. We are going to make their blood spill on the ground. And this ground is going to be red with their blood. What did you think this was all about? You are a man of battle. You know what will happen." And Hur, all of a sudden, he comes to his senses and he realizes that it is that moment to make the decision. And throughout this whole time, Imam Hussein is constantly telling Hur, not in that merciful and compassionate way. He says to Hur, "How dare you? You know as well who we are. May your mother be crying at your grave. You know who we are." And he speaks to him in a very harsh tone. He speaks to Hur, Imam Hussein speaks to Hur in a very harsh tone. And yet, Hur is trying to make this decision. On the 9th of Muharram, when Hur realizes what's at stake here, Hur takes a step back and his body starts to shiver. And one of his companions looks to him and he says to him, "Ya Hur, what's going on? I have never seen you in this state. If anybody was to tell me who is the strongest man in Kufa, I would say it was Hur. Who was the bravest and most courageous fighter in all of Kufa, I would say Hur. And yet, Hur, I see you in this state. What's going on?" Hur says, "I see myself between Jannah and the fire. I see myself between God's mercy and His wrath. And I will never make the wrong decision. I finally see what's going on. I finally see the truth behind this decision, and I am not going to make the wrong decision." And so Hur tries to figure out what he should do. He was the one who stopped Imam Hussein in his path. He is the first one to be unjust to the Imam, and yet he is trying to decide how he can make up for his sins, how he can ask for forgiveness from his Imam. And so he takes the hand of his son. It is said that he also brought his son to fight in the battle. And so he takes the hand of his son and he rides the horse and he rides his horse towards the camp of Imam Hussein. And he looks to the heavens and he says, "O Allah, Allahumma inni atubu ilayk, fatub alay, فأرغبت لأوليائك ولابن بنت نبيك." And O Allah, I have turned towards you, and I am the one who has stopped your awliya and have brought grief and sadness to your awliya. I am the one who has stopped the son of the daughter of your Prophet. I am the one who got in the way of Fatima's son. Oh Allah, is there any forgiveness for a person like me? I lost my way, but now I know where to go. And Imam Hussein, it is said, he hears Hur. Hur looks to Imam Hussein and he says, "Is there any forgiveness for a person like me? Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein, is there any forgiveness for a person like me? I have committed so many sins. I have turned away from all of the blessings that Allah has given me, yet is there any forgiveness?" And Imam Hussein says, "Yes, welcome to the camp, welcome to guidance and the light. And yet Hur still hears the cries of the children. Al-Atash, Al-Atash, this is the 9th of Muharram. It is 2 days and the water has been cut off from the camp. And so the children are crying out. They have had no water for 2 days. And Hur hears this. And he hears the woman crying out, is there any water to be given to us? And Hur knows that there is no going back from this point. He knows what will happen to the camp. And so he turns to Imam Hussein, he says, Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein, is there any way I am the first one to have stopped you in your path? Is there any way that I can also be the first one to sacrifice myself in your way? And Imam Hussein says, yes. Show us what you are made of. Show us that courage that we have been told about. And Hur turns towards the camp and he says to the camp of Umar ibn Saad, he says, do you not know who this person is? And he fights a valiant fight and he kills many of the men as Hur was known to do. And then finally someone comes from behind and they strike him down and he falls to the ground. And Imam Hussein flies to Hur and he comes to the top of Hur's body and he cradles Hur's head as it is bleeding. He cradles his head in his lap and he says, Hur, you have made us proud. We forgive you and you have come into our camp and you have made us proud. Ya Hur, anta hurrun kama sammatka ummuk. You are truly free, just as your mother had named you. And it is in this state that Hur meets his Lord and he dies. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalabin yanqalibun. Sallu ala Muhammad.